Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today, we're going to be talking about emotional health. I have Beth Seiler Brown on the show, and we're going to just talk about our personal experience with workplace emotional health. We're going to give you guys tips and just hope you guys can learn something today. So get you something to drink and come on back. Good morning, Beth Seiler. How you doing?
Good morning, Jesse. I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
I know, man. It's been so long since we connected. Like, it's a lot going on, and it's been kind of challenging to just try to connect like we normally do. But I do miss you a lot, a whole lot.
Yeah,
so
same.
we got to set some time up, and just gotta go down to the spot.
Yeah.
No, so what you been up to?
So it's funny. I feel like probably like everybody, like I feel like I've been doing a lot of things, but also feels like I'm doing literally the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So I think that's how a lot of us feel.
Yeah.
So I've been doing lots of, with my my consulting business, Improv EQ, getting to do some workshops and trainings. And so the topic that we're talking about today like fits perfectly in with that, because I've been talking a lot about like emotions at work and how we can think about them, because there's a lot going on, like you said, like for all of us right now. So and normally, at work, it's like people don't like to bring that stuff to work, but it happens. It's like, you can't stop being human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you do something else too besides on your own business. What else do you do?
Oh, I am a performer. So I do comedy, I do improv. We're back to doing some in-person shows, which is kind of fun. The audience is masked, but the performers can take their masks off during a performance. I'm going to tell you, it's one of the weirdest things to perform in front of a masked audience, because you can't see them smiling. You can barely see their faces. So if you come, I'm just going to say for everybody, if you go see a comedy show right now and you have to wear a mask, do us a favor, like, laugh a little harder, like jiggle your shoulders so we know you're having a good time.
That's good. I bet that's a little bit intimidating though, because you like, am I doing good? Am I not doing good? Or,
Yeah, I at first I was kind of like, oh, I can't really read them. You can't feel the energy in the same way. And I just kind of had to be like, well, because it's too much to try to figure it out. I'm like, okay. And every now and then, I can hear them laughing. I'm like, okay, we're good.
Yeah. That's when you told me the other day that you started like doing comedy. I was like, crap, like, because I always like to see you perform. I love comedy in general, but just me knowing you, know you're a good performer, knowing your personality, I've always just kind of want to support you doing that. So the next time you perform, please, just reach out and let me know, because I definitely come and support for sure. So what do you think about, we're going to be skipping around a little bit, but before we jump in, what do you think about this new Delta variant? What do you think about that?
I mean, what is there to think about? Man, we're not friends. I'm gonna tell you that. Like, I don't like him. I don't know. I'm gonna gender the variant. Just like it's frustrating. I know that a lot of us feel like we should have gotten farther and that this would not be a thing. It's not pleasant. It's one of those things, like I feel like it's like I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, this is a good thing. This is obviously like, this is a horrible thing. It has like a huge impact for people, like their physical health, as well as just a lot of people's mental health, to just feel like we're starting. It almost feels like we're kind of resetting, and the space that we thought we had gained, and we're getting closer to the other side of this pandemic, is kind of farther and farther away. So that's exhausting mentally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that's how I feel personally. And I feel like from talking to other people I can imagine how a lot of people feel like they're kind of a little bit stuck on this, like almost this hamster wheel of, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of people thought that, when the vaccine was created, they thought, we was kind of like in safe ground. Things would start back up. People start to, live their lives as normal. And boom, this happened. And, now things has got to the point where a lot of employers, they are positioning their staff member to get vaccinated. Like and only reasonable accommodation you will have will be religious or medical. I would say medical is going to fly if you get something your position, but the religious aspect of it, that's still kind of on the table. They still can make decisions like, this is not good enough. And one of the things that I've noticed is it is affecting people mental health in the workplace, because a lot of people that's not vaccinated, they have their own personal reasons as to why they're not. But even some of the people that are vaccinated, I've heard people that are vaccinated talk about, they don't feel like it's fair. Yes, I'm vaccinated, but why do you want to force people to, get vaccinated? You're put in a position to choose between their job and this. And it's a lot of emotions that's going on. I was telling you about how I was in a meeting, and this girl, she broke down. She literally had a full-fledged, like a panic attack, anxiety attack, just like, and people looking, but it was so real in her world, because she does not want to get vaccinated, and she's been very depressed, and I feel bad for her, but what can you do?
Yeah. The thing that's hard right now is, and I just want to be, fully transparent, is that like I do believe that vaccines are helpful, and that, those who can absolutely should get vaccinated. But I also completely understand that when people are scared, it is very hard to get them to, do different, right? Like fear is not a motivator for change. Fear is a motivator for like not moving. And so it is a bigger ask for people to get a vaccine, to do something different. And they can't, like, literally, you cannot do it when you're scared, right? When you're scared, it puts you in a place that, like, I can't move, I'm not safe. And so then if you feel that way, and then someone's telling you, hey, you should get this, medicine injected into your body, it's not going to be, it's not an easy thing to ask people to do. So I wish that there were, I mean, I can't change what's already happened, you and I talk a lot about kind of that, it is what it is, and we kind of have to like operate from that space, because you can't really change it. But a lot of people are really scared. I try to be understanding about that. Because, but it's so hard though, because it's such it's so complicated, and it's so nuanced, and a lot of people are trying to make things work, but they don't have all of the answers, because right now nobody has all of the answers. So if you're watching it and thinking, oh, somebody's giving me all the answers, but then now they're changing their mind, they seem like they're not trustworthy. But it's not so much that they're not trustworthy, it's that, like, they don't know, and neither they're just trying to do the best. And I think we don't trust each other anymore. Which is where we are.
And it's like it's a complicated situation. Nobody has all the answers, and I just think, for me, just looking at the bigger picture of things, just talking to different people at work and outside of work, people are, I've never seen this wave of people mental health being affected in the workplace to this particular level, because this is global, this is worldwide, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard, like, and it's nothing you can really do but make the choice for yourself. That's all you can do. So we just got to keep pushing and hope for the best, hope that, good come out of all this crazy pandemic stuff that's going on, and hope that people just, can stay safe. That's, the message that need to be communicating, because that's
Yeah.
the main thing. People are dying left and right from COVID. You know, I was watching the news the other day and I was just like, man, this is crazy,
Yeah, it's
you
heartbreaking.
know. So, but okay, we're up into our topic. So, in what ways can poor mental health and stress negatively affect an employee?
Well, I mean, we were just kind of talking about a lot of it, right? Like,
I know, right?
I think a lot of it is, I mean, so many ways. It like we were saying, and I said a little bit earlier, is that, you know, we're all human. So we all
Yeah,
have, like, we bring our full selves to work. Even, you know, people who try to say like, oh, you know, check your life at the door and then just show up and I'm just here
yeah,
to work. Even those people are still bringing so much of, you know, their life to work. And
yeah,
so when you have your, you know, your mental health, your emotional health, you know, your physical health, all of that, it all affects how you show up. And right now, like we were talking about, I think everybody's, like, that's always been true, right?
yeah,
That comes to work with you. But right now,
yeah,
I think people's, their their emotion, like the walls that they had up, right?
yeah,
That they could try to pretend like, oh, it was different. Like everything's being worn down. Like we're worn down. So
yeah,
we're not faking it like we
yeah,
used to. And
yeah,
that's all I
exactly.
think. Like I don't think that it wasn't at work. It was just we had gotten really good at faking it.
Yes,
And now we don't
yes,
have the energy like to fake it. I'm gonna be
yes,
real. And most people are feeling that. They're like, this whole time I've been spending all this energy to fake it and like just kind of
yeah,
show up, uh you know, like I'm unaffected and like I'm not bringing that with me and I'm just, you know, here. But now we're so tired and everything is exhausting and we don't necessarily know when this will all end. I think a
yes,
lot of people have just stopped faking it. And
yeah,
so you see it so much more. I think it was always there.
yeah,
We're just not hiding it anymore.
yeah,
So yeah, it affects people, you know, like being stressed,
hmm,
feeling like, you know, oh, here we go again, you know, like when is this going to end? Like, you know, I miss being with my coworkers, or even just some people are like, I never want to see my coworkers, you know,
hmm,
all of these
yeah,
things, like people feel different kinds of ways and it's all showing up and affects how we perform and how we feel
yeah.
safe and how we feel comfortable in the workplace.
Yes, you know, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was sharing with me how morale is very low at her workplace. She's in management. She was saying at the start of the pandemic, pre COVID, I guess her staff was performing at a very, very, very high level. And so what happened was when COVID started, their quality of work declined. And you know, she said she was talking to this one girl at work, and the girl, she was like, Jesse, this girl, when I say, because they was working from home, she was like, she didn't do nothing. I mean, she was like, absolutely nothing. And so she had to like start calling her into the office and just kind of doing, I think she said like supervision twice a week. And she asked the girl, she said, what happened? Like, because you one of the top performers. And she told her, she said, well, when I was at home a lot, I was depressed. She told her that she was really scared to really let it be known that she had fell into a deep state of depression because of COVID. She's talking about how she missed the work environment she was in. She didn't feel like she had the support because everything was there virtually. And you know, then and so my friend's like, now I'm in a position where I'm almost gonna have to get rid of this girl, but she feels bad because she knows that her mental health is part of the problem. You know, so it's, I mean, but that's probably like just one of many, you know.
Mhm.
And people at home, they are going through this stuff. They're isolated. They don't have the support system that they need. People want that, you know, tangible, you know, support.
Right.
And it's just what's going on now, you know. Um, and so I
Yeah.
think, so how can you, in what ways do you think um, the workplace, the employers can support employees that fall into those type of situations?
Right. Well, and then kind of in that example, I think one, it has to start with the employers, because one of the things that is hard for me to see constantly is especially like managers, the middle managers are, I know a lot of companies that are having these meetings with them and they're like telling the supervisors, be careful, like look at your people, make sure that they're good, check in with them. But then like who's checking in with them? Right. So you can't give something that you don't have. So I think for employers and for managers, it has to start with like, are you good? Like, what do you need to be good so that you can then take care of your people, right? Because like if I'm in a state of like anxiety or depression, I'm not going to be in the right frame of mind to help someone else when they're in that same space.
Exactly.
You can't, you can't, what's that, pour from an empty cup. So that's the first thing is like, you need to start like with yourself. Like, are you good? Do you have the supports that you need? What are the plans that you need to make sure that you have everything you need, right? I'm a big fan of the WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. I think every manager should have a professional WRAP. So, right, because there's like the WRAP for home and for life, but you should have one for work because like work triggers are different. And know like what you need, make sure that you're doing all the things that you need to do so that you're in the best space. And then because we're virtual, these moments that used to naturally happen with people just kind of coming across each other or like, spontaneously talking about like a show, like before we started recording, you're catching me up on what you're watching, right? Like that would happen in the office. That doesn't happen naturally online anymore. Right now, because of the way it is, we only talk to each other when it's outcome based. Like, hey, I need this thing. And then you're just responding on those levels. So to make intentional time to just talk to people outside of just what's happening for work makes a huge difference. And a lot of that falls on managers to start it, but also to set the tone that it's okay. Staff should talk to each other. Staff should check in with each other.
Yes, absolutely. I have someone that I know when this particular individual is on staff meetings, any collaboration with the staff, she is like so happy. Like she is just, and I had to take a step back and I realized that this is helpful to her mental health because she don't have a lot of support at home and she got a lot of other personal stuff going on, but the work environment is her safety net, and she poured herself out into her work, but I think sometimes some of the people don't necessarily look at it that way, or they don't necessarily understand the dynamics as to what's going on with her because they okay. They like, look, it's just a job, but to her, she's getting her needs met, emotional needs met with the people at work, So I try to, one thing I think is important is for employers and managers to really be educated when it comes to mental health or certain things like depression. Is like they need to be, if they only have the basics, they can identify when a team member is not feeling well and properly being able to support them. Because I know with me, I tell myself in a heartbeat, okay, you not doing good. Okay, go home. If you don't want to go home, like, just take a walk. I'm real good with that. Take a walk, take a break. Like you have to take care of yourself, And but that's because I know about mental health. I can, provide that support,
Yeah.
But
well, and I mean,
important.
Yeah, I mean, there's mental health first aid. That's another great resource for managers to think about learning just like those basics. But like you said, if you notice something like, you give that example, she was like, she changed, she was a top performer and things changed. Like be proactive in these conversations and do it in a way that isn't to reprimand them, but with lead with curiosity. What's going on, right? Like, hey, this, like, things have shifted. Like, what am I missing? What's going on? You want to talk about it? Like to find out what's happening versus just coming in and being like, hey, your numbers are bad. And because somebody who is in a state, right, where there's a lot of shame still and around mental health. And so if you're coming at somebody and then like telling them how they're doing it wrong and they're already trying to hide that they're struggling, you're going to put them further to isolate and to tell you even less. And it's going to hurt them, but ultimately it's going to hurt the work you're both trying to do.
Yes,
like, you're on the same team. Remember that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, one of the things I did to try to alleviate some of the stress at work with some of the staff is we had like a virtual team building. And it was just so nice. And I realized that a lot of the staff, they need that. They need to step away, you know, from the work and just being able to bond with their coworkers in a different way. And, you know, so that they can know like we're all going through this, but it was really successful. I always like to do like shout outs to them. You know, we may take, and my boss, she'd be all for it. So we may take like a half a day and just, you know, have a what we call a virtual potluck. And people cook their own food, and we'll just talk about this is what I'm eating, this is what I made. Like this stuff really works, and it helps to keep people connected. And I know when we get back to work the next day, people are talking about, and they're more motivated, they're looking for the next time because they got something to look forward to that can help them deal with the stress. You know, you got to be creative with this stuff. You got to be very creative.
Yeah. And but I want to talk about team building because I think like that's my jam, right? That's like much of like what I do. Like I light up. I think it's so important for people to recognize that they're part of a team. But I do think that it's really also important to always empower staff members. So if there's people that are listening that are getting ideas, like where I see people make this mistake is they make, you know, team building that's supposed to be fun, an opportunity for everyone to get involved, this mandatory thing that everyone must participate.
Yes.
And I think that that's a dangerous thing. I think you should always highly encourage participation. And if someone chooses not to participate, honor it, but follow up with them.
Yes.
Right? Like in the same thing, lead with curiosity, not like you never come to anything that we do on a team. Like, don't do that, but just be like, hey, like I noticed that you didn't participate. You weren't able to participate. Is there something that you would enjoy doing, or, you know, understand their interests? Because maybe you're doing something that like they're not interested in. But if it was like, you know, like a share your pet day, then they'd be all about it because they want to like talk about their pet. So part of it is like, get to know who the people are. Don't force the participation because that's like the worst. When you have to like forced fun is never good. Yeah. So just, I think, but it's so important. I absolutely agree with you. Like giving people a space to not just talk about the work, but talk about is about the relationships.
Yes.
Those.
You're definitely on point because that's happened in one of the workplace, not this workplace, but a previous workplace when we did like a scavenger hunt from Sacramento all the way up to what do you call that? Apple Hill.
Oh.
And it was planned and it was really good. But I noticed a few people wasn't all that, you know, seemed to be interested in it. And, you know, so afterwards I kind of talked to them and they kind of shared that they wanted to do something. I wasn't part of the planning committee. You know, it was a few people that was planning. And so I told people like, just give your ideas to these two individuals that was the planning committee. Well, the two other staff, they submit their ideas, they didn't feel heard and all this stuff. And after I thought about it, I should have followed up with the staff, but I was so busy at the time and trusted that they was going to do what they're supposed to do, which they did. But I thought about to follow up with them and got all the ideas collectively. We could have still did the scavenger hunt along with what the other staff wanted to do. After we got to Apple Hill and stuff like that, we had a moment where we did, oh my God, what am I looking for? Icebreakers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, icebreakers. And we just was doing a lot of, you know, bonding stuff, but the two of them, they wasn't really into it. And it bothered me a little bit because I really wanted them to feel part of a team, but they didn't. But I learned from that though, you know, because now even though other people may be responsible for doing it, let's do a check-in because I want to know, you know, people ideas, make sure everybody feel part of what's going to happen and stuff. So that is very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
It's so important. I think, you know, there's this when, as a manager, because I've been a manager too, is, you know, when you look at your staff, especially when they're not participating or you can tell they're not really giving their full, what they're capable of, there's this little bit of like kind of irritation, that you kind of
Yes,
naturally first feel. And I've learned that you have to kind of put that aside and recognize that people aren't participating is because they don't feel safe to participate.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's much more about like, oh, okay, I have a responsibility to create a space where everyone can bring they can bring themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that's yeah, that's the
So at the
important.
beginning of the recording, you talked about you're kind of this is kind of what you're doing at your job, at your work business, is the workplace emotional health. Talk a little bit about what you're doing exactly.
Yeah. So my company Improv EQ, and so I use applied improvisation, which is that kind of comedy and humor piece, to teach people like those skills of how to show up and improvise and be in the moment and be flexible, which is really important because that's how we show up in life. And those skills, I use
Mm-hmm.
those to help people understand emotional intelligence and how to
Mm-hmm.
manage their emotions, recognize their emotions, and also the emotions of others. So, really important stuff in the workplace. It always has been, but like we said, right now it's really, really important because
Yeah.
people are struggling and they
Yeah.
need some real support.
Yeah. So when you is talking to people in the workplace, like what are some of the motivators for you? What type of techniques you use to be able to try to bring them from that place to another, or even connect with other coworkers, for that matter?
Yeah, one of the big things that I always try to do when I'm going in and I'm doing like a workshop or I'm leading some kind of, seminar is I'm really trying to help them recognize how to build psychological safety,
Mm.
right? Which psychological safety is the idea that you can bring a disagreement, that you can be on different pages about something, but
Mm-hmm.
still be part of the team and still be heard and
Yes.
still be valued, which,
Yes.
going back to the example you gave about that Apple Hill scavenger hunt, they didn't feel like they could say anything until you
Mm-hmm.
asked them, right?
Yes.
So that
Exactly.
team didn't have psychological safety. Teams that have psychological safety bring up issues earlier. They're
Mm-hmm.
more proactive in addressing them. They recognize that we can disagree, but still be part of a team and connect and move forward. So I really try to help people understand what psychological safety means, how they can
Yeah.
create it, and how they can feel it with their team,
Yeah.
because that's kind of the basis of trust. Because a lot
Yeah.
of the things we're talking about, it's trust. You have to
Yeah.
trust. You have to trust yourself, right? That what you're
Yeah.
saying is true and how you feel, and that it's worth
Yes.
communicating. And then you have
Yes.
to trust that even if you bring it up, that your team is going to hear you, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
validate it, and they're going
Yeah.
to do something because of this thing you've shared. So
Absolutely.
that's really kind of where I start. It's just helping people recognize those pieces of, our shared humanity, because everybody just wants to feel valued. Everyone wants to feel heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that when as you start like these workshops in the midst of them, do you find a transition period? Like, can you like literally see that with people that you've kind of shifted the energy from not so good place to a good place? Can you sense that when you're doing that?
Oh yeah, I definitely can. I
That's
think
good.
it's it's to me, that's what's so much fun, because then they realize like, oh, and I can even see the way that they kind of like look around the room and notice other people in a different way, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like I could call them
Mm-hmm.
and they're my support system, or like, oh, when I'm having this thing, like, oh, like I they don't feel so isolated, which
Yeah.
we we create all these stories in our own heads about
Yes.
how nobody cares, that
Mm-hmm.
nobody can help us, that nobody like has time, that we're a burden, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are created stories, and sometimes people do validate these stories,
Yeah.
right? And so then we hold them tighter. But in general, in most teams, people are there because they care about the mission of the
Mm-hmm.
organization. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not as personal as it feels. And so when you recognize that everyone there cares about the mission, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore to care about the mission, you have to care about each other and care about who you serve.
Mm-hmm.
it's a shift, and
Yes.
I love seeing that for people,
Yes.
because they get to laugh, they get to connect, they get to like be vulnerable, and like that's not how we usually show up at work.
Yes, absolutely. You know, one of the things, and I guess I shouldn't be sharing, but I'm gonna share it and I'm gonna get in trouble. But one of the things I did, one of my team members, it was so important to her. She wanted to have a potluck in person. So what I did was I told myself, okay, we can't, you guys cannot make food to bring to work. We ain't gonna do that. So one of the things we did was we ordered food out from the restaurant. We organized the office where we pushed everything back. It was just like so much an enormous amount of space where people can social distance. We had like tables over here, literally this is what it was, tables over here. And I set the food up kind of like in the middle, you know, when the people came, and they really enjoyed themselves. I'm talking about like and I like to sit back and watch, you know, just the people's actions and their emotions. And people were really, really happy. But I had to kind of still, you know, the 6 feet guys come on, you know, and stuff like that. Man, we was playing music. It was just really, it was good. It was good. I only did that once though, but it was good. It was good. Yeah. But they needed that.
Yeah. And I think that's so smart, like to be creative and find ways that like, look, we can still follow the rules, but we still have to like listen to your people and find out what they need.
Yeah. Because I was like so against it at first. Like I was like, no, like, you know, the corporate office is gonna find out and blah, blah, blah. And they kept coming to me. It was like, look, what about this? So we met and like, okay, we can do it. I was so nervous. But my boss, when she found, she was cool with it. She was like, yeah, like be creative, you know. But I did not want her to know. I'm like, oh my gosh, she found out, but she was totally cool with it and stuff.
Yeah.
What about, so let's talk a little bit about when, because we know employees disagree or having a difference of opinions, and they want to make sure that, you know, they can express themselves and still be respected as a team member. But what about when the tables turn, when you're under your manager, and you may have a difference of opinion, or you may not have a good manager that don't know how to do their job, and you can clearly see that. Like, how does that put a person, when you're an employee and you see like you having a difference of opinion, but you really don't want to say nothing because you don't want retaliation or things like that? What do you think about those type of situations?
Mm-hmm. That's a really hard position to be in. I know that I've been in that position.
Yeah.
And so my kind of advice really would be, you always got to start where you feel safe.
Yes.
Right. So I don't encourage anybody to do or say something where they don't feel like it's safe for them to do. Mm-hmm. Like if you feel like this manager is going to retaliate, if I have any disagreement with them, they're going to like, you know, I had a manager who would constantly, it felt like, was setting me up.
Yeah.
And it was, and so I couldn't, and it would be because of like, oh, if I called her on something, then it would be like 2 weeks. She would hold on to that and try to like call me out in front of, like at meetings in front of clients where she didn't tell me I was presenting, and then just put me on the spot, like, Betsaida, can you handle this? And I'm like, she would just do it on purpose. Like it felt like, right?
Yeah.
And so in that situation, I think like, you know who you are.
Right.
Right? Like you decide if it's safe to do something. If you want to say something, right? Like, because you also, you know, I don't tell people to put themselves in a situation where they feel like emotionally, I can't bring this up. Like if I bring this up to my manager and they act some kind of way, I'm going to start screaming, or I'm going to start crying, or I'm going to feel like I've lost control. Then I do not recommend that you bring it up. Right.
Yeah.
So once to start there. And then if you feel like, you know what, no, like I do feel safe, I feel like I'm in control of my emotions, and this is something that I need to say, then I think it's important to bring it up. Sometimes people don't know that they're bad at what they're doing, or that it has an effect on you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it is really helpful just to let people know, hey, this is the effect that it's having on me. Hey, when you call me out without giving me a heads up that I'm running the meeting,
Yes.
it puts me in a position where I'm not prepared, and that I'm not
Yes.
giving the client the best that I know we are capable of. And I think
Yes.
right. And so I'm not trying to be like, you're horrible, but I'm like, hey, I want to be better. I want the
Right.
client to get the best, and let them know, because sometimes they don't know what they're doing
Yeah.
has an effect.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the other thing, is if you're communicating with them, they don't care. Or they're, it you gotta take care of your energy.
Yes.
Right. So, and that's going to look a lot of different ways to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So that might be like, just protect your energy. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people don't know, and I think it's worth talking to them about. But if you've already
Yeah.
done that, and you're trying to like manage up, and
Yeah.
you're trying to help, and it's so hard. I think in that case, like, make sure you have a good support system outside of work
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
run certain things by, so that you can kind of practice how you want to
Yes.
bring up certain things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because I mean, you and
Yes.
I have definitely done that
Yeah.
where we're like,
Right.
hey, I'm like, here's the thing, like, we're
Yeah.
thinking about this, like, am I thinking of what am I missing?
Yeah.
So that you feel empowered to have these difficult conversations.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, Gart.
It is so important to have an outside support out of your workplace in a situation, because their outlook on it is going, in my opinion, is going to probably be totally organic. If they're your friend or your true support, even if you were, kind of like off base, they will let you know that, like, hey, you know what, I think you're overreacting. I don't think it's like that. Well, give it another week and see. But for me, that has always been saving grace for me, is, because people at work, the politics, the gossip, the rumors, and it can get real messy. So my support has always been outside of work. Before I moved here to California, I came to visit in 2008 or whatever, in February of 2008, but I moved like in July. And I was working for this TV station back in Illinois. And my boss, oh my God, this woman wasn't nothing to play with. And she was such a smart lady, though. I feel like she was a good mentor for me on some things, but she was very sharp, aggressive, upfront, in your face. And that's just the way she managed. That was just her communication style. And a lot of people didn't like her. A lot of other managers didn't like her. I was always in the middle, trying to be nice. Other managers saying, well, you need to just trust another department. She's not being alone. And I will try to feed off into that. But this lady, she was best side. I'm telling you, she was like, she was rough. Me and her, we got into it the week before I left, because I had put in my vacation request like 2 months before, because I knew I was going to come to visit California. She didn't want me to go because she had a lot of stuff going. We had a lot of stuff going at work, and I was doing like I was administrative assistant at the time. And I kept a copy of what she signed, my vacation request and everything. She told me she didn't sign it. I'm like, this is your signature here. And she literally tried to play this card like I signed her name. I went home anyway. So I came to California anyway. And so when I got back, and this is what prompted me to leave this job, because when I got back, she had a meeting with me with HR. I mean, it was so much. I mean, they were false. It was a lot of bogus stuff going on, I promise you. And HR was trying to say, well, she said you forged your signature, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, let's get some more documents that she signed compared to my time off request. Man, whatever. And so that or whatever, they gave me a verbal for that. At the end of the day, I put in my 2-week notice. And that was it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, you on some shady stuff, and I'm knowing you lying. Like, I've been with this company for like 5 years. I've never pulled out like this, but that's the type of stuff that goes. And I was stressed out behind that stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's next level. I think anytime that that you work for someone and they're any kind of shady about like you taking
Yeah.
vacation time or guilting you about leaving
Yeah.
the office. Like that to me, those are some red flags, if not like at least some, pretty deep pink flags to be
Yeah.
careful of. But that's next level. That she's like, I didn't even sign that.
Yes.
No, that's like somebody like, because at that point you're like, what else would you try to throw me under the bus
Right.
for? Like,
Right.
exactly. I'd be like, I am not safe here. I
Right.
cannot work here. I fully feel you. Yeah. I think you made the
Yeah.
absolute right decision to get out.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was, and I really enjoyed that job. And I had already made the decision to move to Sacramento, but I just left. When I left, I just didn't work until I moved here because I'm like, I realized that it had really affected me emotionally more than I thought at the time. Because I'm like, first of all, I'm thinking to myself, I'm a Black man. You are like a white lady. I mean, it was crazy. It was just like, yeah. So I've learned from that situation. I've learned to take care of myself, cover my butt, emails, even like now, but like, hey, just a reminder that you did approve my vacation request, blah, 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 blah. To this day, I still do that because
you bring up such an interesting point, right? So like, because I do management trainings, and one thing that I've noticed is that, same thing, like as a woman of color, like I document.
Yes.
Like I have learned in the real world the importance of documenting everything, because people will try to pretend like something was something that it wasn't.
Yes.
And I have to like document, and we have a verbal conversation. I'm gonna follow it up with the email.
Yes, absolutely.
That summarizes what was just talked about, so that you can respond to that, because I need it all documented.
Yes,
that has been very important. And culturally, what's interesting is that and as I'm working with people, not everybody knows how to do that because they haven't had to. And so I think that's another piece. Anyway, that's just like a little aside, because when you said that, I was like,
no, that's needed, in my opinion, to make a person feel safe mentally. You know what I'm saying? Because you had this conversation, then you follow with an email. I know a lady who was newly a manager. She's newly a manager. She was a lead before, but she got promoted to be a manager. I'm pretty much coaching her on the side because she's never wrote anybody up. She's never had to document. And, she kind of was talking to me about some of the issues she's having her staff. And I'm thinking like, okay, like, did you write it down? She said, well, no, I don't know how. And so I had to really teach her to spell the meat out on paper. You know what I'm saying? You can, because for me, if a person texts me and say, hey, I'm 30 minutes late, when I document, in that file, I'm gonna put the date, the time, and the exact verbiage that came to the text message. That's how I do it,
screenshot if you have a digital copy, like you
got to do it, but it helps you when you do it that way. It really does.
Yeah,
it really does.
It just I think it's kind of like an amusing thing that like, just the things that some of us had to like pick up by necessity, but it's a valuable skill that I think a lot of managers don't really know how to document, and even staff. I think that's an important piece too. It helps with transparency, all of it. So
I whenever I do meet my own boss, I meet with her, do supervision. I meet with staff. You're gonna get an email. Thank you for all your support. I just want to kind of do a quick recap of what the meeting was about, and just spell it out. And I'll print that bad baby out, scan it, and put it in your folder, so I can go back, just in case we need to follow up on some things. It trust me, it's very, very helpful, very helpful.
Absolutely.
So what do you so have you been in a situation where you you was in a workplace, or whether it's your job or just working 9 to 5 somebody else, when the employer did not understand mental health?
Yeah, I think that happens.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, I think it happens in a lot of small ways.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think there's a lot of micro even aggressions that happen regarding around mental health. Like one of the things that I remember is like in an organization when people would use mental health terms, but like not really mean them. Like if people would say like, oh, you know, can you like, I really need the lining or like the margins adjusted, you know, I'm so OCD. And it's like, you're not actually OCD. And that's very dismissive of people who have like that as a condition and things like that, where people would just use these words that they weren't really thinking about what it really meant. And so there's a lot of, you know, dismissiveness of people's needs. And one of the hard things I think is when people have make a request, right? Like, I know that I've had to in certain places ask for accommodations, right? Because of for myself, so that I know that I can be the most productive. And this is when I, you know, worked at a company. And I've had managers who, because they didn't need that accommodation, didn't really understand why I would need the accommodation, which is, that is so annoying to me. I worked in an organization where it was like an open floor plan, right? And so everybody was like in this one space. And so there were no walls, there were no spaces that you could like move away from. And the way that they had me against a wall. So like my screen was against a wall. So everyone's behind me, which I'm already like not comfortable with, because like I like to be in a corner so I can just get a feel for what's happening in the room. So the idea that like anybody can pop up behind me is like very stressful. And then because of, you know, my ADHD, I can't just listen to everyone talking all at the same time and still focus on my work. So I'd have to put on headphones, and they didn't like how I wasn't, like if they said my name, I didn't respond. And so I'm like, you guys are making this so hard for me to be like productive. And they did not understand that that was a problem, because they, for whatever reason, thought that was the best way to run. And so I think, so I really had to spend a lot of time trying to educate them. And, you know, I had to make some compromises. And some days I just was like, I'm just going to work on my laptop somewhere else because it was too much to explain. But just listen to your people. And if it's a reasonable accommodation, I think that we have to just do what we can, especially right now. We're learning how, you know, we have to be so creative and flexible and make it work. And reasonable just means that it doesn't hurt the team, not that it's something I, as a manager, I find reasonable or that I need or don't need. Like, don't use your lens to judge other people's needs.
And that's one of the things that through the years, working for certain organizations that may not have been mental health sensitive, I've had to really teach some of my staff about a reasonable accommodation, either for themselves or other people, because I would have staff come in my office and would say, well, you know, she always wanted, you know, especially if it was a setting like you have cubicles out, a few of them would come in office and be like, well, she always want to work, you know, in a conference room or whatever by herself and blah, blah, blah. And they felt like this particular individual was getting special treatment. And it was that she was getting special treatment. We were just accommodating her because of what she had going on, you know. And I really had to, without going to details what we was doing for her, the other girl, but I had to really try to educate them on that. And like, you know, everybody here is entitled to reasonable accommodation, especially if we can accommodate them. If this is what's going to position her to be able to be productive at work and produce quality, you know, work, then I want to accommodate that. And I mean, we had, I had to call some people from the outside to come in and do some trainings, just talk about workplace stuff, depression, stress, how to self-care, just different things that they wasn't really thinking about. They was just looking at the outer, like, well, she gets special treatment. Because sometimes people genuinely, they don't know. They really don't know.
That actually reminds me of, I was talking to someone who was sharing about how they would teach a class. And it was like a movement class. And so they had, you know, certain students who would always come to the front of the class, and they felt like even when I would place them towards the middle or the back, they'd find their way to the front. And they just felt like they kind of were irritated by how like this person would move to the front and it was always kind of like very loud. And so they would always kind of be like, okay, rotate so that other people could come to the front. And then one time when they were like kind of asking people and trying to be more thoughtful about like making accommodations that were, you know, for the people that were coming, they found out that that person who they had been judging for so long actually was like was hearing impaired and had like vision issues. So they weren't trying to come up and be loud and like take up all the space because like what they thought this person was like a diva who needed to be in the center of attention. Where it's like, no, this person actually is really invested in being here and just wants to hear and wants to see what's happening. And then that changed everything for that instructor. Like, oh, and so a lot of times, like you're saying, we make assumptions about people, right? Like, oh, well, they want to work alone. They have their headphones on, they're antisocial, they distance themselves because that's what it would mean if we were doing it. But we don't know their situation. So you just have to trust your people.
Yes, 100%. And that's why it's important for people like you to do the work that you do, to be able to go in there, educate and teach. And I know you do it through comedy and stuff like that, which in my opinion, it makes it even better because you're bringing humor to something that people need, you know, and people enjoy it. Because sometimes it gets boring when you just like stuff in a workshop, like, oh, really, you know, but when people bring humor, something different, it catches their attention. And it makes people want to change. It makes people want to learn new skills. It makes people want to be motivated to be able to take what they learn and apply it when it needs to be applied, whatever situation it may need to be applied to. So that's super, super important. I've always respected you, working with you, just me knowing, you know, who you are as a person outside of work and work. I've always respected you. I've always felt like you're going to be successful. I always wanted to support you, have your back. And I know we don't connect as much, but I do appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing, even your comedy stuff. You have a lot to bring to the world. You do. And I just wish you much, much, much success as you continue to, you know, go down and do what you're doing, for real talk.
Well, thanks, Jesse.
Yeah.
I appreciate you too. So that was unexpected. That was lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I just think like just a small thing about humor, like I think all of us could add more humor into our world. And when I say humor, people are like, oh, I mean crack jokes. I just mean take yourself less seriously. Yes. That's what like the crux of all the humor is, like, you know, because I'm trying to educate people, but I don't talk down to them. I share where I made mistakes.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's important. People need to know that, like, don't take yourself so serious. Like none of us are perfect. So we can laugh.
Yes. I have a girl at work. She in her mind, everything has to be perfect at work. And when she missed something, she beats herself up so much. And she comes to my office, she said, Jesse, I'm so frustrated, blah, blah, blah. And you know me, I'm a joke. So I'm like, okay, Christine, it's all right. Don't worry about it. You know, I'll just, you know, make sure I don't pay you for the rest of the day, but you can finish work. You know, and she, you know, just joke with her and let her know it's not that serious. It's not like you're not going to be perfect. You're going to mess up. You're going to miss deadlines. It's just like you're one of the best people here. So, and I try to, but her expectation is through the roof, you know. So now she comes to my office if something happened. She'll, you know, kind of like laugh and joke, and you know, so now she's starting to get it. And when she leaves, it's not as bad. You know what I'm saying? I just want to bring that level of anxiety and her perfect expectation down a little bit. Because that's not real world. It's not, you know.
I know. So even when you have the best of intentions, like you still mess up. Like I know that's true. I'm like, I laid out everything so beautifully, and then the emails still look all messed up or whatever the thing is, you know, like there's always going to be something that goes wrong. Yes,
absolutely. Well, guess what, Bethsaida? We have run out of time. This album goes by super quick. So thank you so much once again. You always come through, and I really appreciate that. Like on the Spirit of the Moment stuff too. So, but you have to let me know when you're gonna perform again, or even if you know some events are coming up, like just because I want to come out and start doing a little bit more when it comes to that. So you're gonna be
Absolutely.
my guide to that.
Yeah, I'll let
All
you know.
right.
Well, thanks
Okay,
for having
cool.
me.
You're welcome always. And that's it for this edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this particular topic, if you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you would like a DVD copy of the show, please dial 916 366 4600. Thank you.